into our second Teen Mom story of the day. Shout out to the Ashley's Reality Roundup for recapping Cory's Snapchat rant about what exactly has been going on with him behind the scenes and why MTV has been threatening to fire him, not only from the Teen Mom franchise, but also from the Challenge franchise. According to Cory Wharton, there's a different show on a different network that reached out to him to see if he could participate. And that show is none other than The Traitors, which appears on Peacock, which I think is under the NBC Universal umbrella, right? And so Cory told his followers on Snapchat, quote, "I got hit up to do Traitors season 1. I was 2 days away from leaving to film, and MTV called me and said, 'You are not going on that show. If you like the 2 jobs we have you hired at, Teen Mom and The Challenge.' Those were my 2 consecutive gigs, jobs I had with MTV. They're like, if you like these 2 gigs, then you're not going to go on The Traitors." And I was like, well, 2 is better than 1. And Traitors isn't a continuous show, while The Challenge and Teen Mom are reoccurring. It's twice a year. I was winning, so I was like, all right, let me not go. Listen, I'm actually quite surprised that this was not something that was brought up until like 2 days before he was slated to go, because typically a contract would have been signed. And before he even signs his contract, wouldn't he have spoken to his entertainment lawyer? Wouldn't he have spoken to his network? Like all of these things just to make sure that it was even okay. So like, I kind of need more of the background of this. Like, did they initially agree to allowing him to do this? And then like at the last minute, they changed their mind. How did that work out contract wise? Because I imagine the people over at The Traitors were not happy about that. How do you find somebody to replace Cory or anybody, right, on a show within 48 hours? And it's being filmed in Scotland, a completely different country, continent, visas and stuff like that, work permits. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to me, this story that he is telling in particular. And on top of that, like multiple people from The Challenge have actually appeared on that show. There's been Joey Bananas. I think CT has appeared on it and whatnot. So, and they still continue to film The Challenge. So why is it that Cory in particular was not allowed? So kind of about this, you guys believe this story, or that it played out exactly the way that he's trying to make you believe that it happened? I'm really kind of like stumped here about how this ultimately wound up playing out. So let me see what you guys have to say about this. Good morning, Amelia Bedelia. Good morning to everybody else tuning in. Steph says MTV probably saved him. Why do you say that? Malen says, I don't believe it. CT and Bananas were on The Traitors and they're now on The Challenge. Exactly. That's why I'm having a hard time. One thing about Cory is Cory really does love attention. And I think that people who love attention can kind of even venture off into the realm of making things up, specifically, because they know that it would be scandalous and that it would give them a certain level of attention. So I don't know. I got to be honest with you guys. I don't know, like, if his version of events is accurate. Like, I have a hard time believing that as big as his contracts for Teen Mom and the Challenge are, that he would sign on to do a show with a different network without running it through everybody, and that everybody would say yes. And then at the very minute, like last minute, 2 days before his flight, all of a sudden they would pull the rug out from under him. Like, it just feels incredibly unprofessional. Ramster says Cory hasn't read the fine print, right? Maybe he felt like he knew it all. He didn't want to spend the money, reaching out to his lawyer to get the lawyer to read over the contract, negotiate behind the scenes and stuff. Maybe he didn't feel like he had to answer to anybody at MTV. And then, he found out the hard way. But if that's the case, then how did they find out he was going to go ahead and do it, right? Because you're not supposed to tell anybody that you're going off to do this show. It's all supposed to be like this kind of like big surprise and secret. Jalisa says, wow, that sucks, because if these people from the Teen Mom shows want to make more money, if they can, they should. That's the thing, right? And again, like, we've seen other people from the Challenge appearing on Traitors and then continuing to go on the Challenge. So I don't know. And I do know that there are non-compete clauses with different networks. Remember, when Janelle was claiming that Amazon, Netflix were begging for her to work with them, she said that she was held back by her contract. She couldn't work with any other networks, right? So that is something that has existed for a long time, but I'm just not so sure about this one particular case. Malen said Wes is another person from the Challenge who's also been featured on the Traitors and continued to work with MTV right after the fact. Emily says, I think it's time for Cory to get a real job. I kind of hate his smug face. Listen, Cory is never, ever, ever going to work a 9 to 5. Does he have like a background in working like a traditional job? Because I believe he started doing reality TV like from his teenage years or very early 20s. So I don't know how somebody like that goes from being able to make like piles of money, right, for like a month or two or whatever of work. And it's not like regular traditional work, right, but like just doing adventures and things that he enjoys doing, being on TV to, I don't know, like working at Shoppers Drug Mart or something. I don't know. How does that work? Walgreens or whatever. Miranda says, same Emily, getting sick of him. Y'all are really not feeling this guy, and I'm not surprised. Cory is an incredibly, incredibly kind of like arrogant person. So I get why you guys do not care for him that much. I don't personally care for him either, if I'm being really honest with you guys. Ali says, honestly, I think it could be a possibility to be true because they could have wanted other people from MTV to represent them. And that's the thing, right? Sometimes these networks, even though like they do have these non-compete clauses, sometimes they do work together because like, in some way behind the scenes, there is a connection with them. You scratch my back, I scratch yours sort of a deal in order to promote their shows and their stars. So for example, are y'all watching The Perfect Match on Netflix? For the first 2 to 3 seasons, you had to be from the Netflix family in order to be featured on Perfect Match. But now they have opened it up to other stars. So there are people from ABC, like The Bachelor. There are people from Peacock, like these different things. So you expect to see more of this and less of the non-compete clauses moving forward, right? Ronnie says he's making things up to get his name in the news. Ramster says The Traitors is a Dutch production. My apologies for the Dutch TV crap spreading like a wildfire. Latasha says Bananas has been on any show that will take him. He was even on Pop the Balloon. And speaking of Pop the Balloon, where the hell is Farrah Abraham's episode? I've been waiting for that to pop up, pun intended, but it hasn't. Did they drop her? Like, was it really that bad? Like, how did that go? How did that go? Good morning, Crystal. Nice to see you. Hope you're having a great day so far. Tadisha says, I think MTV should have let Cory do Traitors if he's telling the truth. And I agree, right? I don't think that Traitors is a direct competitor to The Challenge, and I actually think in a lot of these cases, they are complements to each other. People who watch The Challenge or, could be influenced to watch Traitors because they like these kind of competitive things, seeing their favorite reality stars in it and vice versa. So somebody from The Challenge appearing on The Traitors, in my mind, would be beneficial to The Challenge if they hadn't heard about it. Like, wait a minute, what's that? I like this person. I like the whole, seeing how smart or, tactical celebrities, reality stars are. Why don't I give that a try, sort of a thing, right? So I don't know. We'll have to see. Savings by the Shell says, coming in to say hi. I'm on break at work, but we'll be tuning in to see the video around 2 p.m. Good morning, everyone. Well, thanks so much for popping in, Savings by the Shell, and we can't wait to see you in the Playback Posse. Have a great day at work, boo. Miranda says, without The Challenge, Cory is nothing. Like, that truly is his like whole identity and his soul, right? Ronnie says, yes, 100, do it. He thinks he walks on water and needs a reality check. Miranda says he lives, eats, and breathes The Challenge, period. Y'all are dragging him so hard in this live chat. So Cory really is just persona non grata amongst my co-reporters, right? Laura says, that was always such a good joke that proved true time and time again. When he says, I hate that AI makes me question everything now. I'm telling y'all. Jalisa says, wait, what happened with Cory? So yeah, essentially MTV was threatening to fire him from their franchises if he participated on The Traitors, which again, I don't get it. I think it would be a really, really good crossover for both channels to benefit from, but I digress. There was a couple more sort of commentary from Cory in regards to this entire situation. By the way, once again, shout out to the Ashley's Reality Roundup for captioning his Snapchat meltdown about all of this, right? And so let me see what else it is that he had to say. And so Cory says that he tried to negotiate with them because his daughter needed open heart surgery, right? Remember his young daughter, I believe it's Maya. What's his Mila, right? It's his daughter Mila that has the heart complications, if I'm not mistaken. Well, he was telling the executives, listen, but I need the fast cash, right? Like, it's $30K that they're going to pay me for like 2 weeks of work. My daughter's having open heart surgery. I need the money to pay for this. Can I do this? Right. And unfortunately, they just did not budge at all on that, which is, rather disappointing for him. As he said, that's when I got off the phone call and them basically saying, you're not going to Scotland. You can't do that show because it's in competition with a challenge. And he also says that he just does not see how it's in competition with the challenge because the format, the concept of the two shows are just so different in his opinion. And again, listen, they're so different in my opinion as well. Listen, can I ask y'all something, my Americans? If your kid has to get open heart surgery, do you have to pay for like the full thing out of pocket? Like, is there not insurance? Like, should Cory have insurance? Like, how does this work? Essentially, is what I'm trying to understand. Maya has the heart issues. Okay, thank you. Oh, Mila is the first. You're right. I thought Mila was the second one. How does this work? So obviously you do need a certain amount of money, right? Like, what is this, copay or something like that? But like, would he have to pay like that big, I don't know, tens of thousands for this surgery? How does that work? Like, that sounds like a lot. So it's Mila and Maya, not Maya and Mila. Thank y'all. Robin Hood says he's now complaining her surgery was long ago. Yeah, because this was lining up with season 1 of The Traitors. Cory was supposed to be on season 1 of The Traitors. Sweet Bonjour says insurance doesn't cover everything. Does it cover like a good amount at least? Like, because what's the point of insurance, if it's not going to cover a good amount, at least like, I don't know, 70% of it or something, right? Oof. Amy says insurance should help somewhat. That's crazy. Honestly, insurance kind of sounds like a scam. Paprika says he should have insurance with all his money. That's what I would think. That's why I'm so kind of confused about all of this, right? And Paprika, MTV does not give them insurance just because they are contractors rather than like, what is it called? A W-2 employee. So, oof, Lord, this sounds really, really bad. A lot of you guys are saying that insurance is not as fiable, dependable as you would think. People go into hella debt because surgery costs several thousands. Damn. Even with like, what is that called? Obama healthcare? What is that called? Medicare? She says insurance should cover some, but the remainder is out of pocket. And she says he should have insurance, which pays for it up front. Honestly, that whole situation is very sad because, there are some people who have chronic health complications or health issues. And it kind of seems like with this daughter in particular, she's had multiple surgeries and like it seems like a long-term thing for her. So like, how do you survive as a family if your insurance is not even going to cover that? When Angie, it really does look, it's giving scam. Like, that's crazy that you're paying monthly into something and then it won't even like cover you. You still have to pay, out of pocket. Like, that is just so crazy. And that's what I'm thinking, Malen. That's why I'm so freaking confused.